Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Bake into Pie Magic. Today, I'm your host, Jam, and I'm joined by Lucy.
Just me this week. No
Yeah,
Jude to save you.
Jude, he had to go eat a cow or something.
A whole
But,
cow
yeah.
with a fork.
This week, we're going to be playing Cast or Pass. We're going to give our friends cards, and we're going to see if they want to cast them and include them in their deck or pass on them and just never play them ever.
I'm excited to see what you've come up with. I definitely tried to gear my picks a little towards what I know you like to play, which is more aggressive than what I normally like to play. And so I'm curious to see if we have successfully picked out cards for each other that the other will like.
All right, let's get into it. So the first card I picked was Praetor's Grass. One in a black black. Search target opponent's library for a card and exile it face down. Then that player shuffles his or her library. You may look at and play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Lucy, do you think you love this card or hate this card?
Okay, so first let me admit I have played this card. Let me be upfront. I have played this card in Commander. I I can't remember if I've mentioned on the podcast before. I at one point had a Circu De Beer Lobotomist pseudo lantern deck for Commander. It wasn't like oppressive. It wasn't designed to like actually lock people out of the game. Um, but I just kind of wanted a way to play a lantern, and so I played a couple of effects like this for cards that I just knew I couldn't beat, and it's okay. It's fine. It's usually not worth 3 mana. You can do some really dumb things with it, where like because realistically with cards like this, you're disabling other people's combos before they can even draw them. That's kind of what your general goal is. But you can just use it to be like, I'm gonna go get your Soul Ring. I could use some mana. I'm gonna go steal your Soul Ring out of your deck. Um, so it's not that I wouldn't play it because I have played it and I would probably play it again. So I'm gonna give it a tepid cast with the understanding of I don't know if I'll actually ever cast this card again.
I just think it's so funny because if you are like you have to have some meta knowledge, but certain decks will
It
just
rewards tech knowledge by a lot. That's for sure.
yeah, you could just go, I'm gonna cast this targeting the player that I know that they're not gonna have a lot of like win cons, and I'm gonna take one of their very few and small win cons.
Oh, if you play this against someone who straight up tells you they have like one significant win con in their deck and a lot of ways to protect it, they will just scoop. Don't build your decks that way. Build your decks with resiliency.
I
Uh,
build my decks with resiliency, although I have been wanting to build Voltron. All right, next is your turn, Lucy.
so I know you like to play more aggressive, so I brought in this cheeky little uncommon from Dominaria United. This is Twinferno. For one in a red instant, you can choose one. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, you can copy it and choose new targets for the copy, or you can give target creature double strike until end of turn. Target creature you control. And
Uh,
so I picked this because I know that if you cast spells, you're usually doing something big and crazy anyway. And so I figured you probably like having another of your big fancy spell. But I also know you just like to hit people. You like to put swords on random dudes and just get in the red zone. And what's better in the red zone than being able to hit someone twice? And so I was just like, well, what if you could do both of these wonderful things in one place? And so I brought you Twinferno today.
as
Thoughts?
someone who has considered some really weird and bad counter spells, I'm gonna cast this card.
Yeah.
um, I usually just build my deck where they like all the sorceries in it already have like a lot of utility of being cast once, and so like double copying them is pretty good. But there is a choose one card, so you can basically get even more advantage out of it. I will say the one bad thing about it is that you can't hit your opponent's spell, which is like why I sometimes play fork spells or
Yeah, that's very fair.
fork like effects. But just the fact that it has two modes on it is like significantly awesome.
I do wish I understand why. Like this is a very much a staple of just kind of like modern Magic, where it's like, it's kind of unnecessary to have the ability to do this in most instances. But I do wish this had the ability to just give any creature double strike until end of turn, because one of my favorite things to do with double strike tricks in Commander, anyone who's played Duelist Heritage will know this, because that card gives double strike to a creature at the beginning of combat every turn. It's just being like, well, if you punch my opponent, that's also your opponent, I'll give your creature double strike.
Oh yeah,
It's not being able to do that with this card is a little sad, but it's understandable. It is a 2-mana uncommon with flexibility.
I have played like goat effects and just like being able to like make their goaded creature then give it double strike. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
so good. All right, this is my next pick, and it's too bad Jude isn't here for this week. But I picked Tangled Florahedron. So it's an MDFC. The backside is a tapped Greenland, and the front side is a 2-mana dork. So I genuinely want to hear your thoughts because I feel like this is the one of the worst MDFCs, and so I want to see if you play it or not.
So I wouldn't go so far as to say it's one of the worst MDFCs. I think there are some MDFCs where the front side you largely don't want to be casting, and the backside being a land means that like the upside is playing a tapped land, and that's kind of bad. So I don't think a 2-mana dork is inherently the worst thing you can get for an MDFC. That being said, I've tried to play this card and I don't like it. I think if you're a 1/1 tapping for a single mana, um, I want that at 1 mana, and there are way better things you can do at 1 mana. Like I'll play an Elvish Mystic, I'll play a Llanowar Elves, but I'm not paying 2 mana for those cards. At 2 mana, I want my mana dorks to have some way to protect themselves, like a Sylvan Caryatid. I want them to have some kind of additional value, like and like mana dorks have gotten so much better. Like imagine just running this when you could be running Delighted Halfling, you know. Um, but it's not the worst card. I think if I saw someone playing this, I wouldn't necessarily like scoff at it. But I think the flexibility of being a land versus a mana dork means that the two sides are very similar. And so they end up not being as flexible as a lot of MDFCs because they're filling similar roles. That being said, I would definitely play this in a deck that cares about it being an elemental. That's obviously a thing. Like if you're playing an Omnath deck, then jam this thing in because now it's a mana dork with a relevant creature type that's also a land, so it can trigger like landfall or elemental triggers. But outside of that, I like my mana dorks to be better than this, and I have tried. I have given Tangle Florahedron its day. I don't want to play it anymore. I'll pass.
Dang yeah. Oh, knowing that you've
Yeah.
actually tried it is like probably is what. I tried so hard.
It's funny to me that the first two cards you picked are cards I have actively played at some point to middling success.
Next is your card. So you want to read it?
Yep. So this is Treasure Nabber. Treasure Nabber is 2 and a red for a 3/2 Goblin Rogue. And whenever an opponent taps an artifact for mana, gain control of that artifact until the end of your next turn. And the flavor text cites the age-old law of givesies backsies. So that's very important to consider with this card. So it's Treasure Nabber, when it was first printed, I remember there being a little bit of a freak out from people about like, oh, this is gonna take all your opponent's mana rocks and it's gonna be so oppressive. And that didn't end up happening. But I still think that for decks that kind of just want to hit the ground running and play a little more fair, this is a totally fine card. If your opponent has played out mana rocks, they're going to get to use them one more time, and then they come over to you, and you get to accelerate and have these huge burst turns that you didn't have to pay the upfront cost for. It just ends up being a little bit of a pseudo tax effect in the way that Red likes, where it's like, hey, you can play this game fast, but you got to play it fast with me, or the only person going fast is me. And so I thought you might be into the idea of snagging a soul ring every once in a while, snagging a talisman of some sorts.
So I actually have played this in 2 decks. One deck was Enchantress Group Slug, where I used that as sort of like a hate bearers piece, and one deck was a group hug deck. I don't think it's that good in group hug, but I think it's decent in like Enchantress decks, or just as like a 3-mana hate bearer. I have never tried this in an artifact because there's a neat little trick you can do with artifacts where you can like sack them, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm trepidly gonna cast this card. I think it's just barely playable enough for like artifact decks and as like a 3-mana hate bearer body.
I'm just gonna gently bribe you and slide an Atog across your table and be like, "Here, have this Atog. It's fine. Everything's fine."
It's it's the only thing that I wish it did is treasures have become like a huge
Oh, yeah, this is worthless against treasures. Yeah.
of modern Magic. They've scaled it down in recent times, but there's still like a lot of treasures floating out there from that design period of Magic.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like worthless against them. And so, but I think I'm still gonna cast it. I'm still gonna cast it, just because I typically like to run 2 to 3 like fair hate bearers, and like even though this
I know my biggest complaint. Sorry, go ahead.
And even though this can't hit the can't hit treasures, I run backup effects anyways, so
Yeah, I think my biggest issue with this card has always been that like if no one's playing artifacts that they're tapping for mana, this is a 3-mana 3/2. And a 3-mana 3/2 is really bad in Commander if it doesn't do anything. And so I will acknowledge that, but
I think a lot of people play artifacts nowadays, though. I've seen green.
I mean, they do. I don't even think that's a nowadays. I think that's just kind of the history of the format. But still, you're gonna get games where you have this to play on turn 3. I don't know why I'm digging into my own card that you've already said you'll cast. I just wanted to point out that like I recognize the downside of this being a 3-mana 3/2 that might not do anything.
I think enough people run artifacts, though. I mean, I've seen green decks where I'm like, why are you casting an artifact? You could just cast a different ramp spell there.
Because some artifacts are really good. That's why.
Not the artifacts that they're casting. All right. Next is my pick. So this is a 4-mana card, 3 and a green, but it also has a mutate cost for 1 green. It has the keywords reach and trample, and whenever this creature mutates, destroy target artifact or an enchantment an opponent controls.
Yeah, I mean, I have played Gemraiser outside of mutate centric decks. It's not amazing. I think my biggest complaint with it is the fact that you have to mutate, so you have to have another creature in play to be able to do this. So if you're doing anything that's maybe a little creature light, or maybe God forbid you're putting this on a creature that you already think is at risk of being targeted by removal, because then it's just gonna make Gemraiser feel even worse if they do remove it in response. So I like Gemraiser. I would play it in very creature heavy decks. So yeah, I would cast it. I will say I would technically not cast Gemraiser. I would cast Anguirus Armored Killer because I would play the Godzilla version because I'm a filthy Godzilla fan. Um, but yeah, I like this less than more like instant speed artifact enchantment removal. But I would definitely still play Gemraiser as long as I have a heavy enough amount of creatures. And if you have any mutate synergy for any reason, then like auto include, obviously.
I will say those are also some nice keywords, especially on a death touch body.
You're not wrong. I can't. I'm trying to think of the death touch creatures I've cast in my life in Commander, and the only one that comes to mind off the top of my head is well, that's not true. I was gonna say the only one, but it's Grave Titan and Gaunty, Lord of Luxury. And if I'm casting this on a Gaunty, um, then sure, that's kind of cute, I guess. If I'm casting this on a Grave Titan, that's very silly. I don't.
Well,
I'm realistically the green decks I'm playing. I'm probably casting this on a mana dork or some random cheap role player. Because if I'm playing green, I'm probably playing it with black, and this creature's destined to go to the graveyard.
well, we'll see. Maybe there's another death touch creature that you'll play because I put another death touch creature on this slide.
Oh yeah, I think yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there when we get there.
We'll get there when we get there. But now it's your turn.
Yeah, so here's where I try to convince you to play a card that's going to hit you for like 20. So this is Dark Confidant, lovingly known as Bob. For 1 and a black, you have a human wizard 2/1 that at the beginning of your upkeep, you reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost or mana value for the kids these days. And it has the origin of the phrase that identifies all black mages to this day, which is greatness at any cost. And my argument for this card is that if your curve is extremely low, if you're running just like a black deck that your commander is like a 3 or a 4 and your deck is casting like 90% of the non land cards in your deck are 4 mana or cheaper, just play Bob. Just play Bob. You draw so many extra cards. If you hit lands, they're free. It's extra cards. Just do it. Just take the extra cards and beat face. The
Ah,
game's not going to go that long.
two things. Two things. A, Commander is a 40 life format, which is bigger than traditional.
Yeah, more life to pay.
More life, which means there's more life to pay. And there's also just a lot of incidental life gain or life link effects on cards.
Yeah.
I've found and so much
Don't be scared.
so
Come
much
play Bob.
so that I have all the 3 mana versions of this effect in my collection, waiting for me to build a mono black deck at some point. And so for that reason, I'm gonna cast this card.
Yeah, it's being printed into standard. It's so much cheaper than it used to be. This used to be a $50+ card because they played it in Modern and Legacy. Come play Bob and Commander with me. You won't regret it. I've run it in decks where it was maybe a little dangerous to run it. I used to run Mono Black Crick Son of Yawgmoth Doomsday. I ran this in that deck. And yeah, sometimes you'll flip Bolas' Citadel and it'll feel really bad. But hey, you found your Bolas Citadel. So
I just love this card. Commander's a 40 life format.
yeah.
Even if you get hit for 10, you still have 30 life.
Yeah. Also, I know there's nothing wrong with any of the other arts for this card. People like and dislike various ones. I am one of those people where if I can get the versions to have the actual person, because this is one of those cards that was designed by a player. This was an invitational card. This was a Snapcaster Mage style thing where someone won an event and they got to make a card with wizards, which is why this is called Bob, because the guy's name was Bob.
I also like the little creature in the background that's just pondering.
Yeah, the weird Orzhov priest guy is just perhaps I will pay 15 life to drawing an Emrakul, the Aeon Storm.
And Dark Confidant is like, yes, yes.
Yeah, live your dreams, people. Play this card in Vintage Cube in your Sneak and Show decks. Do it.
Greatness at any
So much
cost.
that could happen. Yeah, greatness at any cost. How much life are you willing to pay for a card?
All of it. All right. Now it's my turn. So the next card I picked is 2 and a green, Skullwinder. Creature snake. It has Death Touch. And whenever Skullwinder enters the battlefield, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Then you choose an opponent. That player returns a card from their graveyard to their hand.
So my answer is cast because I've cast this card quite a lot, but you're
Yeah.
not gonna like how I You're not gonna like how I cast it. So I used to run a. In terms of brackets, this would definitely be a 4, like a high 4, but not quite CEDH because I don't think it was good enough for a format like that. But I was running a very high power Marin Clan of Neltoth deck, and I ran all the different Ewit effects in it. And I ran Skullwinder, and the thing that kind of didn't faze me about Skullwinder is that I was more than okay with just getting rid of my opponent's graveyard and then just playing Skullwinder and being like, hey, you person who I just Bajuka bogged, why don't you pick a card out of your graveyard? And so I played Antisocial Skullwinder.
I think
But yeah, I'll cast this card.
I think
Easier to cast Ewit with Death Touch is a card that I'm more than happy to play it.
Yeah, I think you can. It's definitely fair to play this card like anti-politics. Just target the person without a graveyard.
You should play with politics. If you're listening right now and you're wondering whether or not this card is worth playing if other people have graveyards, yes, it is. This card is very much worth playing. If you have to look at someone and go, "Hey, you've got a couple cards in your graveyard. If I were to get one of those back for you, which one do you think you would get?" You know, you can help people get lands if they're like, "Oh, I played a fetch land." Or some kind of fetch land, like even like an Evolving Wilds, but now they're short on mana. You can be like, hey, do you want to get that Evolving Wilds back? I can do that for you. I can do you a favor. Come on, shake my hand. Shake my hand. It's okay. Play Skullwinder. It's good, clean living.
What I like to do with this card is, let's say I need a board wipe, but I don't want to cast a board wipe. I'll go, hey, player on my right that also wants to cast a board wipe. Do you want to cast a board wipe? And they'll go, yeah, probably. And then I'll go, okay, I'm gonna ask Skullwinder get back this other card, and you probably want that board wipe in your yard. So they do all my work for me.
Yeah, you can definitely play it that way, and I have. Sometimes you're like, we need to kill this thing. I've been graveyard hated out of existence, but someone else has got some value that I can at least be like, all right, well, I'm going to Skullwinder for you as a token of good faith. Please remember that the next time you think about putting Rest in Peace in your deck.
All right. Next card is your card, and I believe it's the last card.
It is. And I have chosen Blast from the Past. So I've chosen Mana Barbs. Mana Barbs, 3 in a red, is an enchantment. It says, whenever any land is tapped, Mana Barbs does 1 damage to that land's controller. And if you want to play a fast game, if you want to play red and you want to say, let's go, let's slug it down, one of us has to hit 0, who will be left standing? Play Mana Barbs. It's fine, If you deal like, I don't know, let's say you play this on 4, you pass the turn. If everybody taps their lands for the next 2 cycles, it's just like 9 damage to each of your opponents. And you're like, oh, it's 9 damage to me too. Okay. Your goal is to get to 0 as fast as possible. You're not that worried about your life total, especially if this is like, I've run mono red with Mana Barbs. Look, not enough people are playing Zozu the Punisher, and I think Mana Barbs is a nice compromise for that. Is it worth 4 mana some games? Maybe not, but it's a lot of damage. It'll add up.
So I actually have played this card in a Clothless
Yeah.
God of Destiny deck. And what I found playing Clothless is that typically the decks that I'm like running mana barbs, they're faster, less colors, and less greedy.
Yeah.
And
hmm
Zozu's just a better card, so I'm gonna have to pass. Just
Well, yeah.
I think or Zozu effects where like when lands enter, you get an effect that punishes
Yeah.
an opponent. Simply because like as like the red deck, you're probably wanting to punish the greedier decks that have like answers for you in the late game. And a lot of what greedy decks do is play a lot of ramp spells and play a lot of fetch lands. And so, like, Zozu effects hurt them way more than you playing your one land per turn.
Well, yeah, but that's always kind of the beauty is you pair this with those effects. You know, I know it's not good enough. I expected you to pass on this. There are a lot of ways to hate on lanes nowadays. Though I would argue maybe not enough that put them in the bin where they belong. Um, but I mean, I almost put War's Toll here instead, which, if you're unfamiliar, is a 4-mana enchantment from OG Ravnica. I
I've
think it's from
also
Dissension to be specific.
I've also played it in my Clothes deck.
Yeah, it's if you want people to play fair magic on their turns, there are a lot of ways to make them do it. Red just happens to do it at the end of a very pointy stick. Um, and this was also a little bit of an excuse to show mana barbs. Mana barbs is just like they don't print cards like this anymore. You get some classic Christopher Rush art on this.
I do
Um,
like mana barb effects, I will say.
I
It's
think I
just
saw the last printing of this card was M12. Oh, I mean, nobody likes mana barb. Like they don't
I,
print these anymore.
I like mana barbs. It's just I like Zozu effects
Yeah.
way more.
Yeah, your Amok of Mishra effects. Yeah. I think they should print a card that says enchant land whenever its controller taps it for mana. They take 2.
I mean,
I think that
isn't
I
there
think
some?
that'd be cheeky.
Isn't there something similar?
I think in black,
Yeah, in black.
maybe. But
Uh,
like, put it in red
I
and make it cost efficient.
I
Because if
think
it costs 4, then it's like, whatever. I don't want to play it. But if it's like
I think there's
2
a
mana every time you tap that land, take 2. Gross.
I think there's a red aura that will like destroy the land when it gets tapped for mana. And then there's also
Try to find it. Let's see. Oh, well, I went to go to Scryfall and it's down for maintenance. So I guess we'll never know because I'm certainly not using Gatherer.
Well, thank you everybody for listening to us debate over whether we will cast or pass these cards. We will say that all the cards that we said pass on, you also have to cast as well. And thank you for watching
Oh, yeah.
the podcast. And this is Jam signing off. Don't deck and drive. Lucy.
Bye, y'all. Cast mana barbs at least once in your life.